Torah portion is Parashat Devarim. In it, we begin not only a new book, but in a very real sense, a very different type of book. We've talked about this in the past, that each one of the books of the Torah has a particular theme. The Talmud defines the theme. That theme ends up becoming actually how the world knows these books, right? Bereshit is actually the only one where the name of the book is also the secular name, Bereshit, Genesis.
Right.
Shemot is the Sefer Pekudah, the book of the redemption, Sefer Geula, which is why it's called Exodus. Vayikra is Torah's Kohanim, Leviticus. Bamidbar is Sefer HaPikudim, the book of Numbers, therefore it's called Numbers. And you see, and don't you wish you could be this age and she's out. She's out cold. Or what this is either it's magically able to fall asleep like this at her age, or I have not lost my touch. As soon as I begin a sermon, bam, people are out cold.
Stop it.
I can guarantee you that neither of my kids ever did anything like that, ever. And neither did I. No, we didn't just fall asleep like that. You have to have the temperament.
And those bones are so young and so pliable and so strong. She's not going to wake up with a stiff neck,
No, she's not. She's going to be able to do this and bounce right back into life.
Exactly.
At a certain point, I will excuse myself and just put her down into bed, but for the time being. And now we have Sefer Devarim, Deuteronomy. Now, besides for Deuteronomy being entirely unspellable, what does the word even mean, and why is the book of Deuteronomy called so? It is called Deuteronomy because it has the word "doer" in it, and that is the English, or I guess the Latin translation of the words Mishnah Torah,
right?
Which is what the book of Devarim is also called, Mishnah Torah. Now, what does Mishnah Torah mean? It's a very hard label to nail down with a singular translation, because Mishnah Torah has multiple connotations to it. It's called the Mishnah from the word sheni, right?
Yeah.
But what do we mean by that? Do we mean secondary? Do we mean review? Do we mean something that needs redoubled analysis?
Ooh,
Mishnah Torah,
I love it.
is a very multifaceted term in the way that so much in the Talmud is. The Talmud, and this is one of the reasons why any translator from Rashi in his way to Steinsaltz, to Onkelos, to the Art Scroll. Whenever you're trying to translate, I don't mean Onkelos, I mean Onkelos as in the Chumash, but whenever you are trying to capture an incredibly nuanced a word in a different language, it's fraught with peril. How much more so when you were talking about the Talmud, which is not, or the scholars that are writing it are not only incredibly brilliant and therefore apply their formidable intellectual prowess to their choice of words definitions, but also people that are so incredibly devoted to the subject matter that they are very careful in getting it just right. And so when they call something by a name or a label, to then have to translate it exactly into a different language is nearly impossible. And really, to a certain degree, which is why when you have a Steinsaltz print of the Gemara or the ArtScroll print of the Gemara, the English translation will be 4, 5, 6 times as many words as the original text, because not because the ones that are translating just have so much they want to say, but because it takes that many words to try and do justice, oftentimes, to the words that the Talmud has used, that the rabbis of the Talmud have used to define something. And Mishnah Torah is one of those things. The answer is Mishnah Torah secondary? Is Mishnah Torah a review? Is Mishnah Torah demanding a redoubled focus? The answer is all of the above. And all of that was meant when they called it Mishnah Torah. And what it is, and I'm going to go just before we launch into it, I'm going to say, take her.
Hi, Itala. She's number 9, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he has a little bit of experience in being a father, you think?
Yeah, but isn't it gorgeous to watch how he fathers?
Amazing.
It's absolutely amazing.
I've seen that among all the Chabad rabbis.
Really?
They're so involved. They're so loving. They're so in there every second.
I'm really happy to hear, because I've never seen it before, because he's the first Chabad
Right.
rabbi I've had
Right.
anything
Now
to
that
do.
unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience.
It is
They're
so
so
gorgeous
involved.
to
And
look
the
at.
children, especially the daughters, are so attached to their fathers. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
I hope your ears are burning.
No, my ears are not burning, but I will say that the view has become decidedly less cute. But hopefully the material will still be enough. So, Mishnah Torah. There is a point, even in calling it secondary, and I'm trying to be incredibly delicate with this and nuanced.
Okay.
In the sense that the author of Mishnah Torah is are the and the purveyor, not the purveyor either. Let's call it the purveyor. Is more of a secondary source. The first 4 books are God directly, God in the first person. When it says the I in the first 4 books, who is the I?
Hashem.
God. In the book of Deuteronomy, who is the I for the most part?
Moshe.
Moshe. I was careful to say the purveyor rather than the author. Why? Because this is the last book of the Torah is just as much God, even as the purveyor has perhaps changed. This is still part of the 5 books, and it is not the first book of the prophets.
Right.
it is a mistake if and I'm acknowledging it, and I'm bringing this as a matter because to actually deliberately negate some of the arguments against the caliber of the fifth book versus the earlier four that you sometimes hear made in quote unquote intellectual discussions. That being that even traditionally, the fifth book has a little bit of a different purveyance than the earlier four. Uh, we treat it with equal validity.
I have to tell you a story, just a quick story. I'm teaching the class on Chumash, and I get an email from one of the students, and she says, "What is DH?" Okay, this is in the, and I wrote her back. I said, "Designated hitter."
Right?
Oh, you don't know what DH is? It stands. You know what it is. You just don't know. You know. There's a documentary hypothesis. The ABC. The
No.
joke is lost. It's okay.
You were trying to say that, that you wanted to almost facetiously put them back, say that
Don't give me that.
the only DH that should be acknowledged is DH as in the designated hitter, and
Yep.
don't that's the only valid label that has the
Uh-huh,
initials DH.
uh-huh,
Yep. That was
got
it.
it.
I hear
I'm
you
such a bad
entirely.
joke teller.
No, no, no. I think it's a
I'm
very good joke,
worse.
and I think I love that kind of uh um that I'll tell you sometimes you have to um um you know with like almost this this simple this kind of simplicity to just put somebody like
In their
I'll tell
place,
you,
so.
Rob, the Rebbe's choser. We talked about the fact that the Rebbe had a team that their
Right,
job was to memorize everything that the
right.
Rebbe was saying in real
Rabbi
time, whatever
YY
it is.
talks about it all the time.
Yes, and he was one of them, as was his brother, who came to give the Rabbi Simon Jacobson, who came by to give that for this evening that we had a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
But
nice.
the key, huh?
Right, nice.
Yes, yes. But the key, the one who led the group, and really a standout Torah scholar of epic proportions, was Rabbi Yoel Kahn. Rabbi Yoel Kahn was I mean, to Hasidim, as soon as you said Rabbi Yoel, you didn't have to finish. You didn't have to say Rabbi Yoel Kahn. Everybody knew who you meant by when you said Rabbi Yoel. Rabbi Yoel Kahn was the greatest authority of Hasidus among the Hasidim. He was the one who was responsible to not only memorize it, is not only just about being the court stenographer, as it were, but to capture the theme of what the Rebbe was saying, the gist of what the Rebbe was saying, to really be able to elucidate it on paper, which is an entirely different way than when when you're putting down recording. Um, and he was a brilliant and a devout chassid, etc., to the point where after the passing of the Rebbe, um, outside, and this is one of those remarkable indications of, in a sense, a kind of a clear difference between a disciple and a spectator, as it were, to Chabad. Not one chassid, and I will say this, Chabad chassid, even had the thought that Rabbi Yoel Kahn was anything but a chassid. Outside of Chabad, most assumed that Rabbi Yoel Kahn was going to become the successor. Why? Because you need a successor, and the one with the credentials of percentage wise, as it were. And that's what's it's remarkable that to the Chabad Hasidim, it's like just because this person's at 1,000 and this one's at 10,000, the one at 10,000 is no closer to infinity than the one at 1,000. It's just you don't. It's not like a chas becomes a rebbe, and it's like ludicrous to even. And the one that, by the way, who that was the most apparent to was Rabbi Khan, and this is why I want said because he was once in Israel, and he was going to the various yeshivas. He was giving a shiurim, a Hasidus, and wherever he went, he was flocked by thousands of Hasidim of other groups to come and hear.
Other sects,
he was incredibly well known and famous, and he would give a shir. Thousands and thousands of Hasidim of non-Chabad would come to hear his shiurim, and many of them would then give him a kvittel, like the little, like the letters for brachas, etc., etc. And he would have a visceral reaction to this.
Negative?
It was
no, uncomfortable.
Very negative. Very negative. You don't give a kvittel to a person. You give a kvittel to a rebbe,
right?
And to him, it was so antithetical to who he was. He recently passed away. Otherwise, I would really, he just, it's actually hard to refer to him because he just another one of those painful losses during the years of COVID, the year of COVID, just because he was another institution and a present, like whatever. He definitely was part of the institution of Chabad, but many greats, etc. But so at one point, somebody comes and tries to put the kvittel into his hand, and at that point, he was getting fed up with it. So he turned to this. It wasn't Lubavitcher, but what is this? What is this? What are you doing? And the guy turned to him and said, what? So the guy had to play along with the game. He says, Efshir Rabiel says, maybe you can put it in the ohel of the Rebbe. It's like, I don't need to actually give it to you. I need to give it to you. You'll put it into, again, playing the game. So Rabiel looks at him. He says, okay, so give it to my wife Leah. She's just as devout a chassid as I am of the Rebbe. Go, give it to my wife Leah. Now, especially in those circles, the fact that he would even reference his,
a woman,
right? Yeah. But he was making a point and saying, yes. "What do you do?" Right? Kind of, Paul. It's like, you ask a foolish question. I'm going to give you a foolish reference. I'm going to give you kind of a deliberately, almost facetious answer because, and so, back to Devarim. That itself is a remarkable thing that we will start picking apart, because in fact, the idea that Moshe is, again, I don't want to say the author because that to a certain degree obfuscates the point. The author is Hashem. At the same time that Moshe is the direct purveyor. We say, well, Moshe is the purveyor of everything. No, in most of the cases, Moshe was purely the funnel, or
Aspiclaria.
Yes, but even less than that. I would say the Aspiclaria applies here in Devarim. Moshe's presence, as it were, in the first 4 books was a reporter. Let's put it that way. And what a reporter is meant to be, right? Or the mouthpiece, as it were. We say a mouthpiece is unfortunately used with a derogatory sense nowadays, that all you are is a mouthpiece. That I don't want to sit there and say it in such a way to as the opposite, trying to say that as it says Shechina midabaris mitoch grona. That when Moshe was writing, the I there meant Hashem. The book of Devarim is different in the sense that the I is Moshe, and yet it maintains the same divine validity as the earlier four books. And in no way whatsoever does the book of Devarim take a back seat or a secondary seat in any of whatever it is to the earlier four books. A letter missing, a piece of a letter missing in the book of Devarim renders in the Torah as unfit as the first letter of the Torah or any of the letters of the Ten Commandments. The book of Devarim is a absolutely seamless continuum of the Torah. There is no 4 books plus 1. There's 5 books, period. Full stop. And that is a remarkable thing. That is a remarkable thing. And that is what the rabbis were trying to capture in the label Mishnah Torah, that it is unique among the books of the Torah, at the same time that it is entirely a book of the Torah and not something else. It is not an addendum. It is not a review, purely a review. It is Mishnah Torah. Now, what it does do, ostensibly, is review everything that comes before. Hence, calling it Mishnah Torah. Hence, what Moshe really sets out in doing it. Eila Hadvarim, these are all the things, right? And then we start counting through all the events that occurred and everything that happened up until this point. The highlights, the lowlights, with what could say a particular weight put on the lowlights versus the highlights, particular focus.
Yeah.
And that itself is part of the discussion. Having said that, the highlights are definitely there. And as well, and this is why it's not just a review, because if you say that it's just a review, then all the original material that is in the book of Devarim would argue against that point. In the book of Devarim, we have the repeat of the Ten Commandments. And of course, this is not original material. There was only one time that the Ten Commandments were given. Now you say, wait a minute, there was twice 2 sets of tablets. That is true. And in the second time that the Aseres HaDibros are recited, it is actually more a recording of the second, the second set of tablets versus the first set of tablets. And that's it. We'll talk about that next week. But the but there was only but the advent of the Ten Commandments was once. It wasn't like there was at the beginning of the 40 years and then again at the end of the 40 years where we stand now. No, this is a review of what occurred. So we have again a repeat of material. But then the entirety of the Shema Yisrael only exists in the book of Deuteronomy. Ha'azinu only exists in Deuteronomy. And so many other things. So the point is that, again, if you are saying that Deuteronomy, that the book of Devarim, is in any way, then you just put Shema Yisrael in that category, right? And go think of any quote of the Torah that is more iconic and more anchoring and more foundational than the Shema Yisrael. Along with any number of quotes that are the very foundation of Judaism that are in the book of Devarim. And so this makes a very important point, a point that we have been trying to teach the Jewish people then and have it resonate with us to this very day, which is that what Hashem wants from each and every one of us is a very nuanced concept. I tried, and it still doesn't capture it. To put it, because again, labels are very good and important things, and but also very restrictive and restricting things. The advantage of a label is also its greatest issue. A label is a pithy way to refer to something, which is great because it gives you an immediate handle. It's this, and it's not that. And it helps you able to pick it out of a lineup, as it were. It's this. This is what it is. The problem with a label is it's too pithy. But at risk of the pithiness of this, Moshe represents for better, not for better for worse, but Moshe represents in a very real way the ideal Jew, what we each strive to be. We will never be it. We will never be of the caliber of Moshe Rabbeinu, but he's the icon. He's the icon of a human being who has become partners with God in his creation. Now, this is, as I said, labels are a very important and a dangerous term, because we all come with a certain amount of understanding what the word partner means. To be a partner with God in creation, or in this enterprise, and by creation I don't mean creating the world, I mean in this enterprise that began at creation and still carries forward until Mashiach, etc., etc. And what this whole thing is, God is not looking for a spectator, and importantly, he is not looking for worker bees. He's not looking for independent contractors. The expression that the Talmud uses, and therefore I am comfortable using at the same time that we obviously have to qualify the label, is Nasu Shutvim Lamakom B'Ma'aseh Bereshis. That's the quote. We become partners with God in this endeavor of creation. And so that's why I use this term.
But how that partnership manifests itself with the same goal.
It's more than being about the same goal. Because hopefully a worker is on the same page.
That's what I was going to say. Exactly.
A worker, even an independent contractor, when they're on the clock, have to be sharing the same goal. Every business that is approaching their whatever it is with a certain sense of organization and strategy has a mission statement. They define the mission statement hopefully very early on. Now, of course, you can tweak it, etc., but the mission statement is what you use to make sure your workers, your independent contractors, everybody stays with the same goal, right? And so even the independent contractor, when they are working for you, earning the salary from you, et cetera, at that moment, that independent contractor has to be clear as to what the goal is. Now, and the truth is, in any given moment, I might be working on some particular a purpose that serves the overarching goal at the same time that it might be with a little bit of a different focus in this moment. And it could be an independent contractor or a worker is doing something that's complexion is nothing like the goal, right? The guy taking out the garbage of a tech firm, right? Right, is taking out the garbage. It makes him look a lot more similar to the guy collecting the garbage on the street than somebody working for a tech firm. But over the overarching goal of the guy taking out the garbage in the tech firm is to help this firm stay clean, organized, whatever it is, to achieve its goal of whatever that tech firm goal is. You're just doing it by taking out the garbage. And so your overall mission statement for what you're working for is nothing like the garbage collectors on the street, whose overall mission is the cleanliness of the city, et cetera, et cetera. And your goal is you're part of a firm with this particular. Now, it happens to be that what you do and spend your whole time doing is very similar to that guy, but your overall mission is. So that itself makes a very important point, which means I can look just like this guy, doing something that looks just like this guy, and I could have an entirely different overall goal in mind, and that's something else to ponder, and you can spend an entire lifetime thinking about that. But importantly, the worker doesn't speak in the voice of the boss.
Mm.
Worker does not speak in the voice of the boss. It could speak in the voice of the company. And but you don't speak with the voice of the boss.
So if the worker knows this and internalizes this, then in my opinion, indeed, the worker, the boss, and the boss all have the same goal. That's what I meant by having the same goal.
Sure. And of course, the worker should know their place, et cetera, et cetera. And therefore, in whatever they do, they work towards the goal of the company, et cetera.
I think where the analogy breaks down is that partners in a business are equal. They're equal, so they don't have to speak in each other. I mean, they don't have to speak in each other's names. They speak in the common goal, whatever it is. Whereas Moshe and God are not equals.
So
and I don't even know
yes and no. And this is the thing.
But I mean, now I'm starting to wonder why we even refer to ourselves as partners with God. Us.
Let him explain it. Let him explain it. This is great.
Yeah, no. So you're actually, Jerry, you're getting to the nub of the matter.
This is it.
So aren't we, in fact, workers then? At best. At best,
it'd be
we're workers.
chutzpah, wouldn't it?
Uh-huh. And yet, God says, Nasa shutfim l'makom b'ma'aseh bereshis. Now, by the way, it doesn't say Nasa shutfim l'makom, period, full stop.
Right.
It says Nasa shutfim l'makom b'ma'aseh bereshis. In this particular enterprise, we become partners with God. And it's not good enough, God says, that you should just be workers. It's not good enough that you should just be workers.
Right.
Okay, so this particular enterprise, meaning this world?
Yes. And the role that we play in it. A worker, the book of Devarim was not necessarily a commandment of God to Moshe. Moshe, thou shalt recap the entire. It might very well be that the book of Devarim is Moshe's initiative. And it might very well be that even as such, it is entirely God's. We, me and you, are given free will and free choice, which is the ultimate statement of God in saying that I'm going to put you on a caliber beyond a worker. Because the place where workers work the best, the environment where workers work the best, is where they have no authority whatsoever. Think about a beehive, right? The worker bee is the quintessential perfection of a worker or an ant. And why is it such a seamless system? Because you have one point of authority. That's the queen, right? The queen bee, the queen ant, whatever it is. And the workers are drones. And God, in his infinite wisdom, did not make us drones.
And he didn't make us angels.
Right. He imbued us with free will, with autonomy. Now you can say he did that just purely because he loves us, which is true. But he also deliberately wanted that aspect that whatever this enterprise here in this world should not be the pristine result of him.
In my very, very
messy
in my negative, depressed times, I sometimes think that God did that because he wanted it more interesting.
Yeah, he does. He wants it more interesting. He wants this world to be different than the rest of the process that led up to it. God created Atzilut and it was pristine and transparent, and it was angels that were like God's drones, and God continued to create. And he says, I'm not done yet in my lab. And he created the world of Yetzirah, and then he created the world, the world of Bria, and then he created the world of Yetzirah. And then he created this world, which is the world he was getting to, which was at a distance, metaphorically enough, that the creations within this world felt autonomy. And God said, oh, I did it. I did it. I pulled it off. Of course, that's not how God said it. But he was seeking this autonomy, not as a bug, but as a feature.
Right.
Because he was not looking for worker drones. He was looking for partners, for those that would exercise their autonomy, their authority, and use it with the same clarity and vision, and partners with God. You see, not independent contractors, partners, which means the share with the same commitment, the mission statement, the vision as God himself. And thereby channel not only God's resources, but God's vision, God's commitment, but each in our own unique way. And that is necessary. And we need to be on board. Not just because, okay, God, you said so. So, no, with everything that makes us us, with everything that makes me this type of person versus that type of person, with everything that makes me Sender Gazinski, I don't negate myself. to become a devout Jew. I discover myself in becoming a devout Jew. Too many people assume that what it means to be observant means you have to put yourself, you have to nullify yourself. You nullify whatever it is that makes you unique, whatever it is that makes you create, whatever it is, and you become a drone. Comes the book of Devarim, which is the handiwork of Moshe, and it is God. And that is a remarkable, remarkable thing. We can become transparent to the godly vision at the same time where we are so uniquely me and you and each and every one of us. It's a very nuanced thing. It's a very nuanced thing and very delicate. It's a fine line to talk about because it's near blasphemy in either way you do it, because in either way you tilt. But it is entirely true that Hashem would almost logically, for the sake of the purpose, negate our free will. If all that mattered was getting the job done, then turn us all into drones and we'll do it, and we'll do it as efficiently as anything else. In fact, better than making us drones, why don't you just do it, God?
Well, he didn't have to create us at all.
Why don't you say all 5 books? Why leave 20% of your Torah to be said by Moshe? It's your Torah. It's your message. It's your Shema Yisrael. It's your Hazinu, God. So why leave it to Moshe to say? Because a precedent is being established here. Sure, I can do it. That's not the way it's going to happen. You're going to do it.
God is enabling you to be able to do it.
In a good way.
He's empowering us.
Absolutely empowering.
He's built us and he's obligating us to do it. It will not be done unless we do it. Mordechai turns to Esther and says, if you will not rise to this moment, it will be done.
Somebody else will done.
By somebody else. Bimakom acher, not by God. Of course, it will be God who does it. He's going to be the one who does it when you do it. But it needs to be done by somebody.
What needs to be done?
When we look around the world and say all this pain and suffering, where is God? Oh, God's right here. He's here in you, buddy. God is here. And when you will rise to the moment to try and mitigate the suffering and the pain and suffering, that will be God. But he's got a partner. And he expects his partners to rise to the moment. When it will be done, will still be God having done it, but it will be you whose handiwork it will be. That's the power of the message of the book of Devarim. Our humbleness and our humility should not negate the fact that we need to bring everything that we are to the table and we are obligated to commit to it and to understand L'chein nivra adam yichidi. That is why Adam was created alone as one. For you to turn around and say that when the moment comes calling, it is you alone who are going to do this. You can't turn around and say, God, just do it, or God find somebody else. No, you're the partner that God has been counting.
That's what Moshe
And
said
at
in
the
the
same
beginning.
time, understand that when you do it, this is not you and how wonderful and amazing, etc., etc., etc. you are. When it will be done, it will be God who gets the Baruch Hashem, as it were. And that would be the epitome of what we would all strive for. That in fact it shouldn't be us. It should be God through us. That's the epitome. That's the best. That's perfection. That's Moshe Rabbeinu and why he's the icon. Because is the book of Devarim his? Yes. Is it God's? Yes. And that is not a contradiction at all. Spending time to ponder that, because again, we can say the words and we can give the labels, and as we said, a label is a very dangerous thing because it's oftentimes a very superficial way to refer to a very or to reference a very, very deep and nuanced idea, which this is. But it's something, this is the entry point to ponder that idea, this dynamic that the book of Devarim represents. Our unique role in this enterprise. Is it that we are doing it? Yes. Is it that God is doing it? Yes. Now go figure out how those two work together. And we'll kind of start to understand, but then there's certain truths. If we just had the first four books of the Torah, then this is God's world, and at best, we are his drones. If the rest of the Torah is written like the fifth book of the Torah, then it's our world with some divine oversight and investment. When you have the first four books and the fifth book making clear the contrast, but then the seamlessness, then you have an understanding that actually this is God's world and it is my world, and two things are simultaneously true at the exact same moment. Va'anochi afar va'efer, I am but dust and ashes.
Yep.
And bishvili nivra ha'olam, and
Everything.
the whole world was
The whole
created
world was
just
created.
for me, are simultaneously true.
Right.
How in the world? Guess what? God never said it's going to be easy to be a Jew. But this is what it is. This is that tightrope, that balance, that tension. Tension and yet symphony. At times it's more of a tension, at times it's more a symphony. That is Yiddishkeit. We are denizens of this world, each with our own unique flaws and our own unique character and our own unique talents, etc., etc. That makes us decidedly not divine. Who doesn't have any of these flaws, doesn't have any of these restrictions, doesn't have any of these quote unquote talents, because that would indicate surplus here by deficit here. And just the fact that we are saying that God doesn't have is actually incorrect and blasphemy. But we still say that we play a role in which God says, you're going to do it and not me. And when we do it, God will have done it.
Mm.
When the doctor will do it, and it will not be, quote unquote, God, which is why the doctor feels they need to step in, which is why Mordechai says, Esther, this is your moment, step up. You're the one that this moment is asking for. When it will be done, Mordechai and Esther will pick up their eyes and say, Baruch Hashem. And when the doctor will do it, we will say, Baruch Hashem. And when Moshe Rabbeinu finishes penning the book of Devarim, as it were, we will call it Torah Hashem. Now, none of our enterprise and none of the rest of the scholars, when they too lent their divine wisdom, does that get included in the 5 books? Because, as I said, while Moshe is the icon and the example, nobody will be a Moshe. Nobody will achieve that caliber of transparency that Moshe did. But it is also true that there is a spectrum here. And when me and you are going to come up with some idea that we have of Torah thought, it will be called Torah. And behind me are the contributions of many a scholar. And we call this all Torah. Not just that shelf directly behind me, which has the 5 books, but all
You're
of
giving
this.
my whole presentation. This is killing me. Oh my God.
All of
I'll
this.
have to abbreviate it.
Now, we have to temper that with the understanding, V'anochi afar ve'efer,
We have to be humble.
to know that what the words that come out of my mouth are narishkeit, as it were, and so infinitely limited. And to call a distance, say that there's a distance between me and God is a ludicrous statement, because distance implies that we're even, there's some sort of what's it called? Connective tissue. It's not, and again, we're in an entirely different spectrum, etc. But somehow we need to contain in our minds this seemingly paradoxical truth that is itself the book of Devarim. It is our handiwork that is necessary and demanded with everything that makes us unique, etc., not to negate even one aspect of what makes us who we are. All of that was created on purpose by Hashem, and all of that contributes to the unique contribution that I am obligated to put into the world, and without me will not be done. At the same time, that when I do in fact do it, Baruch Hashem for what He has done. That is the power and the message of the book of Devarim. Something that we could spend our entire lives contemplating and still never truly be able to capture, but is a truth that we have to be aware of. Now go figure it out.
Go study.
All right, everybody?
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Have a
Shabbat
good
shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbos.